All right, guys, big shout out to today's show sponsor, Squad QL. Are we actually rolling this time?
Yeah, we're actually going this time.
The roster management assistant to help you win your league in 2018. Squad QL gives you the advantage by directly connecting to any league on Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS. Pulls in the roster, league setting, and scoring system, provide recommendations for trades, starting lineup decisions, and waiver moves to help you win every single week. Head to squadql.com to download the all-in-one Fantasy Football Manager app. And if you're interested in DFS, like Dan Thury, head over to rotoql.com, the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer trusted by 100,000 DFS players worldwide. Available at rotoql.com, and apparently won Thury some money last night.
I won money because of it last night, so shout out to you guys.
All right, so shout out to all of them. Let's start the show.
Squad.
Happy Friday, guys. Welcome back to Beer Fuel Fantasy Football. It's time for week 4.
It's Friday.
We're a quarter of the way through the fantasy football season after Monday.
Getting down on Friday.
As you guys can tell, we're in a bit of a festive mood here. I'm Nick Sparts, joined on my left singing Friday by Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps. How you doing? Hey, I got an idea, by the way.
What's that?
Why do I take the time to record the YouTube episode and then upload the YouTube episode after the fact with no editing? Why don't we just live stream when we record these so they're already uploaded?
I mean, we could. Doesn't matter. Would your computer handle that?
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, live production meeting on air. We can start
It wouldn't
doing
be
that.
a Beerfield Fantasy Football show if it wasn't a
I wanted to
live.
get the weekly production meeting.
Yeah.
All right. Good note. We'll talk about that more later. And Dan Thury's also here.
At 30 BFF. Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm here, guys. Hey, what's up? At 30 BFF. 2 Fs.
All right. Well, we are Beerfield Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter if you're joining for the first time at BeerfieldFF. We're also on Instagram where you can check out can art of the beer we drink on every episode, and Untapped if you want to get a review of said beer. Beerfield Fantasy Football is if you want to watch us and be able to see us interacting on set here.
As Hopper
As
keeps,
Hopper is
I don't know what he's
awkwardly
doing.
adjusting everything that he's got going on right now.
He needs to fix everything.
We also live stream Sunday mornings, 10:30 in the morning Central Time. It's only on YouTube.
There's a giant lump on my head. And I was trying to get my headphones comfortable.
Makes
Do you have
sense.
to blame live studio audience for something?
No, I was actually cleaning out a closet and stood up and took the clothing rack off of my skull.
All right,
There's that.
Seems painful.
All right. Well, you can subscribe Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube if you want to be able to ask us questions Sunday morning. It's 10:30 in the morning. Bring your questions. We'll let you know who's inactive. That was questionable coming into the week's games. We'll let you know, answer your start-sit questions, any news, weather reports, anything you guys need to get prepared for week 4. So be sure to check us out there. In addition, you can follow us on Facebook, Beerfield Fantasy Football. We actually had somebody start asking questions there. That is a place you guys can ask us start-sit questions and stuff in the Facebook group as well.
Shout out to that guy.
Shout out to AJ who did that.
Thanks, AJ.
Cool. Well done.
All right, and the one last thing, if you guys do want to help support the show monetarily, we do have merchandise. Dan, as usual, is rocking the hat.
I do love my hats.
We have shirts. So DM Beerfield FF on Twitter or email Beerfield Fantasy Football. BeerfieldFantasy@gmail.com if you want to DM us for that.
And really, buy merch, guys, because when you buy the merch we have, we can get new merch.
This is
and
true.
start doing new cool stuff. Like, not just T-shirts. We could do, like,
Glasses.
or koozies or long sleeves or because it's fall.
I've inquired about these things.
So-
Our merch guy sometimes likes to go dark on me, though.
Yep. Or if you'd rather just give us money straight up, I'm always willing to take cash. Hit us up about our Patreon. We have that as an option as well.
So donate monetarily, momentarily.
All right. That's enough with that. And before we hit the full preview on the week, let's preview a beer.
Beer Fuel.
Have I told you lately that I'm proud of you?
You have not.
Oh, well,
I appreciate it, though.
I am, because for the first time in 4 weeks, you've gotten preview and review right.
Wow.
We're not done with the episode. I still have time to fuck this up. All right. Keeping with the Oktberfest theme, we have Urban Chestnut's Oakats or Oachkatzlschwoaf, I think.
Cats don't say wolf.
Bless you.
I see a cat and I see a wolf.
Ochtkatzlschwoaf meow.
If anyone wants to let us know how that's actually pronounced.
Yeah, if anyone's really good on their German. I'd appreciate a translation
That's
or
right.
a pronunciation.
We're gonna
guide.
Pronunciation.
We're gonna get fucking roasted in the YouTube comments. for that.
Unless you're sending us audio, just typing it out to us and saying it's pronounced this way. Not really gonna work.
I mean, if anyone wants to give us a YouTube video like response with the pronunciation, I'm cool with that too.
That would be cool.
It's by Urban Chestnut, as mentioned. They're out of St. Louis, Missouri. I believe the third time on the show. I was too lazy to check when we were typing this in the 30 seconds before we started recording.
It probably is.
It's an Oktberfest, comes in at 5.4% ABV. We'll give you a full review once we get through the noon games.
Oh, look at it though.
News.
Unfortunately, this first piece of news didn't come out Wednesday because it would have been great to include on our We Fucked Up episode. The Saints waived running back Jonathan Williams.
Nice.
So
So-
apologies for that one.
Oachkatzlschwoaf is an Australian slang word for a tail of a squirrel, often used to prove if someone was Austrian because Germans couldn't pronounce it.
All right.
That's per
That's
Urban.
that's a real convoluted explanation.
It's a slang word for a squirrel. Germans couldn't pronounce it, so to determine if someone was Austrian or German, they would
Make them say it.
make them say it, I guess.
Okay.
This is the third time Urban Chestnut's on the show.
So,
I had it right then. Cool.
Yeah.
all right. That's per Urban Dictionary, so it has to be true.
Urban Chestnut, Urban Dictionary goes right together, right?
We're feeling very urban today.
All right. Giants place Jonathan Stewart with a foot injury on injured reserve. Womp womp.
Womp womp. Oh, wait, hold on.
Things I don't care about. That's already too long for him.
Please, career be over.
Yeah.
I mean,
For the
Limp
sake
off
of,
into that sunset.
I loved Jonathan Stewart in his prime, but it's time, man. It's just time.
Yeah,
It was time 2 years ago.
it was time 3 years ago.
He really
probably.
did not look like himself in the preseason either.
No, he
Or
didn't.
for most of last season.
All right. On the when things go from bad to worse, Jake Butt suffered a torn left ACL in Thursday's practice, third of his career.
He could
Third?
Be. He could be
He
done.
tore 2 in college, and this is his third ACL tear.
He's got the market cornered on ACLs.
Yeah.
And now he finally nailed both knees. He had 2 rights, and now he's got a left.
Oh, cool.
If you're putting it a points per ACL tear, there's your 101 right there.
There's your
folks.
101.
Mm-hmm.
And then hype train over. Colts wave tight end Eric Swope.
Huh.
I didn't,
Well, I mean,
All
it's
right.
good news for Doyle this week, I guess.
We'll get to that later. It is not good news for Doyle.
no,
What
he's out.
Then what the shit?
Yeah.
It's all Ebron all the time.
It's great news for Ebron.
Speaking of that, let's get into some injury updates.
What are you doing, Indy?
Monday hangovers.
Really need to change the name on this drop.
Or just say it Friday hangovers.
Just hangovers.
Hangovers.
All right, for the injury updates. Players that we have confirmed are playing this week. Running back Jay Ajayi is going to go, though apparently he's dealing with a broken back. So that's impressive.
Fuck?
He's got a He said I got a back fracture and he's going to play through it. So
Didn't somebody else have this last year or a couple years ago?
Derek Carr and then Cam Newton.
Oh, yep, that's it. It was Derek Carr. That's the one I remember. So he can definitely play through it. I actually like his matchup this week, too, with
Yeah.
him playing. So
Matt Breida, though this eventually did get switched to a possible game time decision, so pending on this one. It got said he was going to play and then maybe not.
They
So
need to because
he needs to play.
live situation. Giovanni Bernard got confirmed he will play.
Yep.
Good. Mixing out.
Yes.
Mixon is out.
Startup Geo.
AJ Green confirmed he's going to go.
Good.
Very good.
Doug Baldwin returns
Yes.
from the double
Has
knees.
it been confirmed? I thought he was still a
got-
game time decision.
It's
That's what I read
confirmed.
last.
Pete Carroll confirmed it today.
Okay.
And Doug Baldwin's been saying it also. So he will play, and they desperately need him. It's a good matchup. Don't be afraid to fire him up. He's been in the system long enough. He's familiar enough with Wilson. He's desperately needed. They need a win badly
And Wilson fucking loves
against a
him.
woeful Arizona team. Fire up Doug Baldwin.
And he won't be shadowed by Peterson because Peterson doesn't shadow no more.
Exactly.
This is significantly less sexy than it would have been a few weeks ago with the injury to Garoppolo, but Marquise Goodwin was going to play.
He was more on him later.
All right. And Charles Clay is going to go this week.
I have literally one note on Marquise Goodwin, and I don't want to waste it in the news segment.
All right. We'll let you
Save
keep that
it.
for later.
I'll save it for later.
Save it
For
later.
outs, Joe Mixon confirmed out, as we mentioned earlier. Devontae Freeman confirmed out. Darren Sproles is going to miss again with his hamstring injury.
Good.
And then Jack Doyle, hip injury, out.
All right. Wasn't Freeman back at practice, though?
Freeman is practicing, but he has been confirmed out and not going to play.
Okay.
Saving them for next week.
And the Check Back Sunday on YouTube list. 10:30 in the morning. Subscribe to the channel, Beerfield Fantasy Football. Running backs. Leonard Fournette still questionable with the hamstring.
I think he'll go.
He'll go.
He'll probably go, but we'll keep you posted Sunday. LaShawn McCoy, rib injury.
He'll play.
go.
Chris Carson, hip.
He'll go.
definitely play.
Matt Breida in the ever-fluctuating situation, knee.
I expect him to play.
Same.
Alfred Morris, also a knee, so they have two good knees
I
between
was
them.
later, so probably not.
Corey Clement with his quad injury.
Yeah, he's not fantasy. Well, Sproles is out. So
Sproles is out, so
I
Clement
think
would still
he'll
have
go.
relevance.
Otherwise, Wendell Smallwood, not a bad deal.
I almost want to throw up saying that.
I know.
Just hearing you say it makes me want to throw up. I didn't even say it myself. Marlon Mack, hamstring.
No.
Yeah,
I don't think he'll play.
this is a weekly occurrence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a running thing.
I don't think
that he can't
plays.
run on his hamstring.
I get it.
DeAndre Hopkins, ankle, hamstring, thumb.
He will play.
One of those things is not like the other. But yeah, I think he plays.
Keenan Allen, knee, tooth.
He's
truly-
returned to practice. He should play.
He was limited today.
Yeah, it's that one's tough.
I hope he plays. Otherwise, I might have to fire up Tyrell Williams.
I love Tyrell.
And Mike Williams
And
jumps
Mike.
like a
I love the Williams
high wide
brothers.
receiver too.
Yeah,
Right.
They look all good.
Unfortunately, that's a 3:00 game, so that sucks.
Just
That's
be
okay.
prepared, folks. Be prepared.
Cue the music.
Cue the music.
Be prepared.
Golden Tate, hip.
Yeah, he'll play.
He plays through
He
almost
always
everything.
plays.
He always plays.
Alshon Jeffrey's shoulder may go this week.
I think he does, but I think it's probably in a limited capacity.
Yeah, don't start him anywhere if you can.
Just too bad because I don't hate the matchup.
Yeah.
Randall Cobb, hamstring. Love Geronimo Allison if he doesn't go.
Yeah, I
don't think
he
he's gonna play
goes.
either.
Well,
I thought his was.
He injured it Thursday in practice.
yeah, he may not go. And yeah, I do love Geronimo if he doesn't go. And then Jimmy Graham gets a bump.
Yes, he
Not
does.
that you can really bump him right now.
He can't go
He's already
higher.
my 5. I don't know that I can move him up
Yeah,
much.
tight ends are kind of nasty.
Josh Gordon, hamstring.
I don't care if he plays
That's
or
the
not.
correct answer. We don't
Well,
care.
the one thing that it comes into play is if he goes, you could possibly see Xavier not covering Hogan, which would make that
It helps for Gronk, helps for Brady. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's more benefit for other people, not just him.
I don't want to start him specifically.
No.
Travis Benjamin, foot, because San Diego needs more injuries.
Yeah,
Or LA.
I don't care.
Whatever city they're in. And then Hayden Hurst, foot, may actually go this week.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. I think they'll save him for one more week.
All right. Check back on Sunday, and we'll give you updates on all those guys. All right. Now we got to recap Thursday night.
What the hell happened?
And I forgot to include the score, but I'm pretty sure it finished 38-31, right?
Yeah.
All right. Rams win 38-31. Jared Goff goes off. Vikings couldn't stop anybody.
Everybody went off.
Everybody went off.
Literally.
Everything.
Dan, tell us about this fantasy pinata.
We'll start with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, another great performance. 36 of 50, 422 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks at 28 yards on the ground.
I did not understand why people were fading him so heavy.
I don't even, I mean,
Yeah, with Talib out?
Yeah, there were some Mayfield or Cousins questions.
I don't. Whatever.
We got Talib out. Peter's not at 100%. I guess it was the
Well-
pass rush they were worried about.
Also, just as a quick aside, way too much Mayfield hype this week. Way too much.
that's
Yeah.
coming from us.
Yeah, there are some really good matchups for quarterbacks this week. Mayfield does not have one of them.
No.
Nope.
So Cousins 16 game pace through these first 4 games. 524 completions, 756 attempts.
That'd be a record, wouldn't it?
Another record. 5,500 yards.
55.
I mean, the way that
passing yards.
the way the defense been playing, I wouldn't be completely shocked.
Jesus.
40 touchdowns, 8 picks, 5.3 touchdown percentage, and a 1.1 interception percentage.
Jiminy Christmas. And think how much better it would be if it wasn't for Treadwell.
Right?
He didn't have a horrible game.
He had a
bad game, but it wasn't horrible. He had a drop, but it's
Yeah, he's still leading
We've
the
known
league in
this
drops. So
we've come to know that.
I mean, the offensive line was still an issue, but they were able to get around it.
It wasn't until really late that you got to
It's-
really see it.
I mean, it was when they could really pin their back. And
Yeah.
there was just no
When
threat
when
rush.
Donald finally got freed.
Yeah, them not having a running game is a little concerning.
Speaking of the running game, non-existent. I think total like I think I wrote down 13, but I forgot that I think Mike Boone had a carry. So about 14 carries as a team, 26 yards on the ground, only 3 targets a month. This is a third straight game of under 15 attempts as a team for these Vikings running backs. It is concerning, but I think with the 10-day rest for Cook, they'll finally get the team back to where it was week 1, where it was a lot more balanced.
It needs to be.
It needs to be.
I don't want him throwing 50 times a game. I love it, but not 50.
I like it for fantasy. I don't like it as an actual fan. As for the receivers here, Thielen and Diggs gave you great games. For Thielen, 12 targets, 8 catches, 135, and a touchdown. Diggs, I'll target him finally this game. 15 targets, 11 catches, 123 yards, no touchdowns. Obviously, they're both locked and loaded wide receiver ones at this point. With the amount that they're throwing to, you can throw them out there. Like this is supposed to be kind of a tougher matchup. But
and they're getting 50% of the targets. But in Cousins is throwing 50 times, so it's just ridiculous.
When you throw that much, even names like Eldrick Robinson, 2 catches, 32 yards, and 2 touchdowns can even show up.
I will hesitate though. They do get the Eagles next week. That is going to be tough.
Sure.
How'd that work last time?
How did that work against the Bucks?
Well, they did well against the other 2.
I know.
They had.
Anyways, even Truddy got involved in this. 7 targets, 4 catches, 47 yards. Then he, of course, gave you a drop. Rudolph did not have... I'm sorry, go ahead.
How'd that work last time was more of a reference to the NFC Championship game.
Oh, yeah.
No, I got you. I just didn't want to... It still hurts. As for Rudolph, he didn't have the game... He didn't have the game I was expecting, but it was not horrible nonetheless. 6 targets, 5 catches, 57 yards.
It's a tight end 1.
Yeah, it'll be...
If you got a touchdown for sure.
It's going to be a tight end 1.
Yeah.
No, like for sure, that's a tight end 1.
Unless a lot of tight ends score touchdowns this week, it will be.
Yeah. And that's for the defense because they were drafted. It's probably the second one in most leagues. You can drop them, I think, at this point.
I don't want them against the Eagles next week, so...
No, I think they're just as good as any other streaming options like Cleveland out there. Even,
Yeah, don't hang on to name cachet.
Yeah.
On
defense especially.
It's the worst it's been in
You can play
years.
matchups.
I'm not sure if it's that Griffin's missing or...
We have no pass rush. The Vikings have 0 pass rush. That hurts. Like, no matter how good your secondary is, if you can't get to the quarterback and they have all the time in the world to throw.
And it just seems like some teams have figured out how to scheme this AA blitz, and maybe all teams have figured out how to scheme it. And in which case, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
It's a copycat league.
It's called going after Anthony Barr with your receivers.
Yeah, did it twice.
As for the Rams, you guys have any more questions of the Vikings?
No.
Concerns, comments?
I completely endorse the Vikings defense does not have to be owned.
As for the Rams here, we'll go with, per the Ballers, Keen, Jared Goff.
King.
Yep, they call him Keen Jared Goff. So Goff went 26 for 33, 465 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Perfect QB rating.
Is he a weekly quarterback 1, the way these have been going?
That was going to be my question that I had about 2 seconds now.
Well,
Sorry.
The thing
you're good, man.
Is they haven't put the gas pedal on this much before this week. So
this is supposed to be, on paper, it's probably his hardest matchup of the
had
season.
multiple touchdowns and 250-plus yards, though, I think, the first 3 weeks.
No, he didn't the first. He only had 1 touchdown week 1.
Okay, but 2 and 3.
Fine, here's the notes. He's at 11 touchdowns through 4 games. He's at an 8.2 touchdown rate. He only has 2 interceptions. He's thrown for 1,400 yards. And his 16-game pace would put him at a record 56-24. Are we witnessing a Jared Goff breakout season right now? Because I think we are.
I mean,
I think he took the next step. I think last year was a breakout, but I think he took the next step.
I mean, Cooks is helping even more than I thought he would.
Well, they just opened up this offense for him.
He's got 3 viable wide receivers, a pass-catching back, a running game they can use to open so that you can't just key on the passing game.
Yeah, the only thing they're missing is a stud tight end at this point. That's literally
they don't even really need one.
Yeah, they don't need it, but that's like the only thing that you could ask on a wish list right now.
I think Jared Goff is a weekly start at this point.
I agree.
In my opinion,
at worst, he's a back end QB1. My only concern with him is the games where the defense just crushes the opponent, as opposed to this one where it turned into a shootout. I might be a little concerned about how much he'll have to throw. That'd be my only concern. So game script, I guess.
I mean, you run into weeks like that with Brady, though, too.
You do.
So
I mean, there's
all quarterbacks.
There's very few quarterbacks who don't keep the pedal
the
on.
biggest thing about him in terms of other quarterbacks is that you really can't just scheme for him because you got to worry about Todd Gurley killing you.
Get 202, you're not disappointed in your quarterback performance.
No.
So,
all right.
Go ahead.
Moving on, Todd Gurley. It was a weird game for running game. Just, the teams, figure that they had to throw. Todd Gurley still had a great day, though. 156 total yards on 21 touches and a touchdown. Then as for these receivers, all three went over 100 yards. All at least caught a touchdown. Shout out to Hopper for Cooper Kupp start of the week, as he was the best of the three, 9, 163, and 2 and 11 targets. Cooks went 7 for 116 and 1 on 8 targets, and then Woods cut off 5 of his for 101 and 1. Are all three of these receivers must starts?
Yes. I'm sure I'll find a situation at some point that I don't think so, but I don't think,
there's a lot of teams out there that'll have those situations.
Well, let me put it this way. It's going to depend week to week on, I think, Cooper Kupp, probably. And that's not saying that there's a week where you can't start him, but there may be weeks where there's better options. Because when you look at his floor, his floor is about 6 for 50, 6 for 70, which is not a week you're disappointed in, but you may have some guys like Tyler Boyd, for example, like Nelson Aguilar, other guys that are kind of in that same tier that have matchups with higher upside and similar floor, to where I don't think he's necessarily a week-to-week start. But at this point, I think that Woods and Cooks are pretty safe.
Woods still leads the team in targets, I believe. This is the first time he didn't lead the team in terms of a weekly targets. Cooks is, I think, locked in. It's just that Kupp's got 4 touchdowns in all 4 of his games. He's got, besides one game, he hasn't scored. It's just the way that they utilize his offense. I just don't see how you can leave him on your bench, because like last year, they could put up 30 plus points a game against what's supposed to be, an elite defense.
Yeah, I'm not really buying that at this moment, that it is an elite defense. It'll be interesting to
That's why it's just supposedly.
It'll be interesting to see how they match up against teams like the Eagles and stuff that I do think actually have better defenses this year. But overall, I do think all three are at minimum kind of in that wide receiver 3 consideration, and that's in their worst matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And as for tight ends, there's a lot of volume, just not enough going to them. And then the defense, it was just an off week. It's a very good Vikings team. They get the next 3 games are on the road, but it's at Seattle, at Denver, then at San Francisco. All not super powerhouse offenses. A lot of
the only one that
I wouldn't be concerned if you own their defense.
Yeah, the only one that they're probably not a top 3 for is Seattle. The other 2 they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's it for that game.
All right, let's preview some games.
It's just me making noises at this point.
Weekly preview.
I hope you're ready to make some more noises, because you are kicking us off here.
Not yet. So if you could drag this out.
All right.
I thought I had the doc pulled up with my notes in it, and apparently I either closed it or didn't. So.
All right. Well, it is Dolphins at the Patriots. Can the 3-0 Dolphins handle the reeling Patriots? Patriots are favored by 7 at home in this one. It is a 47.5 point over/under.
I keep going.
All right.
My internet's running really slow right now, apparently.
Well, you got Ryan Tannehill, who's started off to a pretty hot start this year. He's actually considered a decent streamer by a lot of people. I know, Hopper, you were a big fan of him this week.
I definitely would consider him a different streamer. I think the note that I have in my notes that I don't have pulled up is that he's a
different streamer.
I think that going back to 2016, like 5 of his last 6 games, he's thrown multiple touchdown passes. I think we're good now.
Okay, well, he didn't play in 2017, so
That's
I assume probably further back.
It was going back to 2016, yes, but he's had multiple touchdown passes. He's thrown for something like 346.6 yards in matchups against the Patriots.
He gets the yards,
so
for sure.
He's had some pretty good yardage there against them. So I would just expect that he has a relatively decent game. Kenyon Drake, moving along, he's in flex consideration. It's not the worst matchup for him, but volume has kind of been a concern this year. So you kind of gotta watch that, and the efficiency numbers on Drake are not nearly as good. Kenny Stills, I think, is an absolute must start this week, just because he's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 there. They're not really using their tight ends. It could be an interesting week for Gesicki, but that's who most of this work is going to go to, has the ability to beat you deep. They're going to have to find a way to score points in this game, and it's going to be through Kenny Stills. And then as far as the tight end goes, Gesicki, you could do worse on it. Hey, I finally got my notes up.
Yay!
Hey.
So, and I will say, Dan disagrees with you on the Stills thing. He's got him at 40. You got him at 19.
The Patriots are giving up the 5th most points to wide receivers, and Kenny Stills has 100% catchable target rate through 3 games and 10th in average target distance.
Dang.
Oh yeah,
So
there's a lot of big plays there.
I will be all over the Stills thing like I was before the season if his target volume can just go up a little bit.
yeah, I know. I don't like target volume, but I think this is a game where they have to throw, and who else are they going to throw to? Kenyon Drake.
That's the hope, so.
Kenyon Drake's not really getting it.
Parker may not even go.
Parker's probably not going to go. Albert Wilson's been pretty big play dependent. They're not using the tight ends, so.
It's him and Amendola.
Yep. I mean, with Drake, the Patriots are bottom 2 again in most rushing defense stats. They allowed 120 plus yards a game on the ground. They're like 5.6 receptions per game to the position, and they're in the neighborhood of 51 receiving yards a game being given up. But it's just the volume for Drake. It hasn't been there. There's still the Frank Gore experiment going on. So yeah, I'm opposite. I do like Kenny Stills this week.
Okay.
And then, as I mentioned, Gesicki. There's still no consistency with the tight ends. Gesicki, if you start him, you're hoping that he catches a touchdown. He should be on waivers, though, if you're in a situation where you need one, and a lot of people probably are streaming tight ends at this point. Yeah, exactly.
I have too many leagues to know how many I have to stream.
That's all I've got on the Dolphins, though. I would stay away from the defense in New England.
Yeah, I'm not risking that one, even though I like their defense.
I do like their defense, and at some point you will. I mean, they're going to be recommended as a stream. It's just not this week. For Patriots, Tom Brady, you start your studs. They're going to be at home. They're going to be throwing footballs, which, I mean, most weeks he throws footballs as a quarterback. But, again, I kind of like the Dolphins' defense, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's more of a back-end 1, high-end 2 this week, than especially with some of the other quarterback matchups. So I don't expect a blowout from Brady, but he's not going to kill you.
Oh, yeah. I got him dead in the water.
Dude, wow.
Yeah.
20?
He's done shit the last 2 weeks with no receivers, with no receiving game.
Yeah, he's right. I almost put him lower.
I mean, it might be a little bit too low, but we're in a league right now, in a season right now where there's a lot of good streaming options every single week. And you can't just, trust the name all the time.
Yep. For the running game, I like James White a lot more than I like Sony Michel. And even though every Sony Michel fanboy is going to be hyping Sony Michel, just like everybody out there is going to be hyping Baker Mayfield, I'm going to say wait to see it from Michel. Both I think are flex viable, but the Dolphins, they're only giving up 83 yards a game on the ground, but they are giving up 7.3 receptions and 66.3 yards per game to receiving backs. Dan just mentioned it. Brady's going to need people to catch passes in this as well. White's also been the more efficient runner so far this season. 4.3 yards an attempt on 13 to Sony's 3.5 on 24. So, I mean, it's not like there's a huge volume difference there. And Michel he has yet to do it, and the Dolphins have been relatively good against the running part of the running game. Not as good against the receiving part. I think the volume will be there for Sony, but I think that James White has the better day.
So Sony's a flex, and James White is a flex plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like different tiers of flex.
This week.
And Sony Michel, I like a lot more when I see him do it, but I haven't seen him do it. And if he's one fumble away from just getting thrown to the bench, and Kenyon Barner is relevant.
That means Kenyon Barner is going for 4 touchdowns.
Please don't wish that shit on me.
For the receiving game, you got plenty of better options this week than starting a Patriots wide receiver. Xavier Howard's locked down, and I want to see Gordon do it before you run out and start him. He's also dealing with the hamstring, which makes him questionable. And Hogan's been very disappointing. He's had under 5 targets a game, only 28 yards a game. His only startable week was 2 touchdowns against Jacksonville, and touchdowns are fluky.
See Wednesday's episode.
Yep. And Gronk, start your studs. You don't really have a choice but to start Gronk. So
yeah, like you're going to bench Gronk.
Yeah, you're not benching Gronk. That's it.
All right. Next up, Bills versus the Packers. Packers favored by 10, so Bills probably win by 20. 45-point over-under in this one.
Let's hope.
On the Bills side, there's only one person I'm recommending starting, and that is if he's active. I'm recommending you start LaShawn McCoy this week. Packers just got smoked by Adrian Peterson, who went week 3 for a tune of 24 fantasy points. Only Bill I'm recommending starting because he should hopefully start getting some volume here. The lack of touches from the first couple weeks he was healthy was very disturbing, but hopefully with Josh Allen under center, they can get this offense rolling.
I'm glad you like one of my starts of the week.
Completely agree with that one. For the rest of them, leave them on your bench. With 6 minutes left in the second quarter, the Bills did not cross their own 45-yard line the rest of the game. So Josh Allen's not going to get 2 rushing touchdowns every week to save his day. Passing game was still a complete disaster last week.
Yeah, nobody was doing anything there.
So bench the rest of them. Hopefully Allen, Running, and McCoy can make this offense do something. But it's one of those, let's see this offense grow into something viable before you start running out there and starting people. On the Packers side, Gimpy Rogers is still a top 5 play. Cousins, in a terrible game where he had 3 turnovers, still managed 11 points against this defense. So, and Flacco and Rivers broke 20. You're starting Rogers. Don't even hesitate on that one. Now, this would be an awesome spot to start a running back if you knew which one was going to get over 10 touches, because you basically don't at this point. If I'm taking a home run swing on one, I'd start Aaron Jones. He was getting some hype in practice about how explosive he is.
Rogers specifically was saying that he wanted him.
I think the OC was too.
Yeah.
So he's the one I'd start. It's kind of a low RB3 desperation type play. I would generally try to avoid it, but if somebody can take a hold of this backfield at this point, it's Jones.
Yeah, I agree.
He got some Ryan Grant comparisons from Rogers, except the good one, not the receiver.
Not the shitty one for Indianapolis.
Yeah.
All right, Adams at this point is a locked-in top 10 guy. Shouldn't have to talk too much about him. 6 receivers have already broken 9.7 points in half PPR against the Bills, so he should give you a decent floor day at worst. The other 2 is tougher. If Cobb is healthy, he'd be my preferred start because right now he's out targeting Allison 27-18 through 3 games, so that's 3 extra targets a game. So I'd still prefer Cobb if he goes. If Cobb isn't active, though, I'm pushing chips in on Geronimo Allison is at worst a high wide receiver 3. Mm-hmm. Graham is a must-start at this point. Bills have been 9th worst against tight ends through 3 weeks, so he's our number 5 ranked tight end as a consensus. We love him here. And defense, after what we saw last week in Allen's running ability, is more of a desperation start because I also don't think Green Bay's defense is very good.
They're not rookie cornerbacks, and
yeah, it's kind of the terrible offense meets the bad defense. It's probably just going to be awful for everybody. They may get a couple turnovers, but they may also allow 30 points. So
you can't predict it, so stay away.
I would generally try to avoid unless you have no better options. To what hopefully is a slightly more interesting game, Texans versus the Colts. Colts favored by 1.5, 47 point over-under on this one.
All right, we'll start with the Texans. Your starts are Watson, Miller, Hopkins, Fuller. As for Watson, since his rough Week 1 game against the Patriots, he's had back-to-back 300-yard games, including multiple touchdowns in both. Turnovers are still a concern, but he at least has had the upside to offset them. Lamar Miller's had a quiet start to the season, just 1 touchdown through 3 games. And the rushing attempts have been pretty mute for most of these games so far, but this is a good get-right game for him. Colts have given up 20 points to running backs per game this season, 10th most, including 28 receptions on 34 targets, 3rd most in the league. Obviously, Hopkins is a must-start, but then there's Will Fuller. He just continues to catch touchdowns. That's pretty much what he does. But now he's getting a little bit more. He's got 13 catches on 20 targets through his 2 games this season and over 100 yards in both. He's becoming more than just a touchdown-dependent receiver. The defense is not the worst stream this week. Luck's thrown 3 interceptions this season. The offense just doesn't put up a lot of points. And then you're not going to play any of their tight ends. As for the Colts, Hilton and Ebron, I had notes for Doyle, but that was before he was confirmed out. As for Hilton, he is just a he's been a little up and down to start this season, but he's still a decent wide receiver 2 start each week. He's got 2 touchdowns in 3 games and at least 5 receptions in those games. His upside is what keeps him a wide receiver 2, though, because he can blow up at any point with Luck out there. And then just with the tight ends, there's just not much out there at this point, and Ebron should have the entire show to his. So if Luck can continue to get better, Ebron should be fine.
And he's basically the only red zone weapon they have.
Yeah. And then as for my stream and flex options, Luck gets this spot. He's had just 5 touchdowns in 3 games and a yards per attempt of 5.3. I still have faith that he'll right the ship and then be a quality QB 1-star week in and week out. But there are better options for you out there this week. But if you need one, it's not the worst matchup.
Yep.
And then you're going to bench your running backs because it's a shit show, even with Mac out.
And if you're really desperate for a streamer, I actually don't hate their defense, which has overperformed this year, and the Texans' offensive line is horseshit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's that.
All right.
Yeah. That's not.
That was an awkward pause.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to go a little longer.
So she said.
That's what she said.
Wow.
All right, Hopper's up next. Lions at the Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 3 at home. 43.5 point over under on this game.
I don't know how the Cowboys are favored.
I have no idea either. I would bet the Lions all day.
Yeah. Let's start with the Lions, by the way. Matt Stafford, he's a high quarterback Q for me. Dallas isn't allowing a ton of points to quarterbacks, but he's at 35 or more pass attempts in every game this season. He's easily the most complete offense Dallas has seen all year as well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Stafford go off. But, he's almost a lock for multiple touchdowns. He's consistently a back-end QB1. He's got some upside to him, but even at floor, I'm comfortable starting him this week if you don't have better options. Kerryon Johnson gets some flex consideration for me. He did have a great week last week on an efficient 16 carries. Dallas is middle of the league in running back points allowed, but they're not weak against any one particular type of back. I don't expect this game to get completely out of hand or the Lions are just running the football because Dallas's defense has been pretty good, and he is still splitting with LeGarrette Blount. So, as cool as 101 yards story is, and as much as he performed for it, he's still just flex consideration right now until he takes a stranglehold on the lead back job, which I think he should, but it's not a tremendous matchup. For the wide receivers, Tate and Golladay are both hard not to start, even though Dallas is 30th in points allowed to wide receivers. It's really hard to sit either of them given the volume that they're seeing.
And also, who have they really played?
Exactly. Jones, I'm a little bit more tepid on. He's kind of in that flex consideration realm just because I think Golladay has surpassed him. And I don't think that they're able to. I don't think that the game script in this one allows all three wide receivers to have a huge day. So if I'm picking two, it's Tate and Golladay.
I agree.
And then for Theo Riddick and the tight ends, I just don't like the game script for either of them. I don't think there's going to be a ton of throwing, so throw to the running back. I think this is more kind of a try to grind it out through defense type of game.
Mm-hmm.
And, the tight ends in Detroit are just gross.
Yes.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
No, either defense is, Lions are a pretty good desperation stream on defense as well. As for the Cowboys, start Zeke. That's it.
That is the only answer.
That's all I got. That's the only analysis you need on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Them and their defense has been competent so far, I guess, if you are really desperate.
Prescott, I looked into it, I think last week, but he hasn't been over 250 yards since middle of last year. He hasn't had multiple touchdowns since the middle of last year.
Yeah, I forget who put the graphic together, but I spotted on Reddit. It was like over their last 12 starts, him and Osweiler are almost identical in stats.
Yep, I saw that also.
That's amazing.
I saw that also. So
Mike White season, let's go.
And there's no defined clear-cut wide receiver here that you want to run out with a lot of better options this week. So
yeah, somebody needs to take over and become a wide receiver.
I think it'd be
one.
Gallup.
Yeah.
They're just the game script and like the game scheme.
Well, and they don't have a quarterback that can necessarily, and as long as the defense is playing well, and they're not losing by a lot, they're just going to try to run it through Zeke.
Yep,
and pass it to Zeke.
So
all right,
that's it. Start Zeke.
Well, that's been enough kind of meh games. Let's get to a fun one here. Bengals at the Falcons. Falcons favored by 5. Our first over 50-point game of the week. 51.5 point over under. On the Bengals side, Dalton is an absolute must-start this week. He's our number 6 overall quarterback. Falcons are giving up 25.5 points a game to opposing quarterbacks, which is 4th worst in the NFL. And that was after Nick Foles scored 3.6 week 1 against them.
Oh, yeah. I almost forgot about that game.
Newton dropped 28.6, Brees 40.5 in weeks 2 and 3, and Dalton has been excellent in all 3 games this season. Even his game against Carolina where he threw 4 picks, he didn't kill you. Mixon likely isn't going this week, was later confirmed that he's not. Brings Gio in as a back and running back 1. Falcons are also 4th worst in the NFL against opposing running backs. 3 running backs have already broken 18.2 fantasy points against him in the first 3 weeks. Love Gio this week. He is an RB1 for you. Start him with confidence. AJ Green is a must start, of course. The closest comparable true number 1 receiver the Falcons have played this year is Michael Thomas. He caught 10 passes for 129 yards in week 3. He's our wide receiver 1, Hopper's wide receiver 2. Boyd is also a start here as a high wide receiver 3. 6 wide receivers have already scored 10-plus points in the first few weeks against these Falcons. So there's production to be had. He's their clear-cut wide receiver 2. He's definitely a great start here. He probably gets you close to 10 points. Eifert's a fringe start here. There is volume. It's a high over-under. His snap count jumped up. He was over 70% here in week 3. So he's trending in the right direction where you can start considering starting him, and he might finally start bailing you out with a touchdown. But no tight end has scored yet against the Falcons. Watson did go for 71 yards on 5 receptions in week 3, so maybe he can get you a floor game off of yardage alone. On to the Falcons side. Matt Ryan is also a must-start this week. Bengals allowed all 3 opposing quarterbacks to hit 19.8 fantasy points per game, which you'll take 19.8 out of your starting quarterback.
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco is one of them, yes. Ryan has also broken 31 fantasy points in back-to-back games. Both quarterbacks in this matchup are absolute must-starts and in our top 6. Bengals also just let Christian McCaffrey go for 194 yards in week 3. 184 of it came on the ground. He was barely even used in the passing game. Coleman should see 18-plus touches. I love him as a top 12 play as well. He's our consensus RB9. Ito Smith, even as a desperation flex, isn't terrible in this matchup. Bengals seem to get almost exclusively beat by opposing wide receiver ones. They gave 13-plus to Hilton, John Brown, and Funches through 3 weeks. So Julio should have a back-to-back game here, though. But they've not allowed double digits to any wide receiver 2 so far. So I'm not chasing Ridley's blow-up game. I like him as a more of a low wide receiver 3 type play if you need it. Maybe he gets another touchdown, but I don't like him nearly as much as some other people are hyping him up here in this matchup. Hooper continues to be a borderline tight end 1. Bengals allowed 2 tight ends to break 50 yards, so at this point he does land as our consensus tight end 12.
I'm running him out again.
There is some opportunity here. I'm benching Njoku for him in a league just to give you an example. All right, that's enough on them. Bears versus Bucks with a higher over-under than I expected, 46.5. Bears favored by 3.
All right, let's start with the Bears here. 3 starts, Howard, Robinson in the defense. Howard's got off to a quiet start this season. He has yet to get over 100 yards in a game.
He's not getting volume.
Yeah, and then he's been back-to-back games with under 3 yards per carry, but this is a good matchup for him. The Bucks have given up 5 total touchdowns to running backs this season, and it should be enough. He should get enough work to at least should get enough work to at least be an RB2 for you. As for A-Rob, just like Jordan Howard, he's got off to a bit of a slow start here, but the Bucks just love giving out fantasy points to opposing receivers, and they've been beat by slot receivers like Michael Thomas, Nelson Aguilar, and Juju Smith-Schuster. And with Anthony Miller not playing, I like A-Rob to be more into the slot like you saw against Seattle.
Yeah, because without Miller, it's going to be Bellamy or White, and both of them will play outside. So
yeah,
I definitely expect A-Rob to get a lot of slot time.
No, I actually disagree. There is another must-start here, and it is Trey Burton.
You think?
The Bucks have been...
I completely forgot about Trey Burton.
The Buccaneers have been atrocious.
Sorry about that, guys.
This year.
Play Trey Burton.
Yeah.
Not bad.
No Miller. Bucks are terrible against tight ends. You start Trey Burton.
Yeah.
Bears'
offensive volume is just meh right now.
No Miller might help with that. And hopefully they stop giving Taylor Gabriel 10 targets a game.
Yeah, I don't know why he gets 10 targets a game to pick up 30 yards.
So annoying. As for the defense, for some reason, this kind of looks like a tough matchup just for what the Bucks have done offensively.
One note on the defense, Amukamara is not playing.
Yes, saw that. But they've been fantastic. They're the best fantasy defense right now, so they're throwing them out there regardless. And there is no flex streams. As for, I would like to play Trubisky this week. This is a good matchup. He just hasn't given us any faith to play him this week.
Still making a lot of rookie mistakes.
Yeah. And then it's the same goes for Cohen. He's at least proven it before, as we saw last year, that he's just not getting enough.
He needs a Taylor Gabriel volume.
Yes, he's had 21 touches this season.
Pounding the table for this because I think he can do more with screen passes than Gabriel can. Because even though Gabriel's fast, going shiftier.
This is a great matchup for him if he could at least get the touches. So if he can get them, if he can get the Taylor Gabriel bullshit plays, then maybe he'll give you something. As for the Bucks here, your starts are Mike Evans and O.J. Howard. Evans is a must-start this week. The Bears have been very good since the heartbreaking loss to the Packers. They've only given up 1 touchdown in 2 weeks and then under 250 total yards to them. So he'll be fine potentially, but just don't expect a blow-up game from Mike Evans. And then as for O.J. Howard, you just kind of know what he's done to start this season. He's a tight end 3 right now in half-point PPR leagues. And then he saw a season high in routes, targets, and receptions last week, and he's clearly the tight end 1 in this offense. As for flex stream plays, Fitzpatrick, if you want to chase the points that you got the first 3 weeks, you can go out and try, but he's been pretty much walking the fine line between Fitztragic and Fitzmagic. And if he has the first half like he had last week against Pittsburgh against the Bears, you could see Winston
No, the
Be
Bears.
put in for them.
The Bears' defense is not Pittsburgh's
Yes, exactly.
in a good way.
Yeah. So if he struggles, he could get pulled.
Unless
and
you're starting
that'll be
Fitz,
the
in
end of
which case it's a bad way.
As for the other flex plays, Godwin and Jackson here, Godwin is clearly the number 2 option. It's just a very tough matchup, and you have to expect a touchdown to at least save his day, though he's gotten a touchdown, I think, in every game since last season, or since the last game last season. And then you're not going to play any of the running backs, and then Cameron Bray was nice to see him have a bounce back game, but he's clearly behind O.J. Howard still, so
No volume.
no volume. And that's it for them.
All right. Not getting too much more exciting. Eagles versus the Titans. Mariota is back in this one, though, which should help at least a little bit. Eagles by 4, 41-point over-under.
Yeah, I don't know that it helps that much. This is going to be defensive struggle, I think. Starting with the Eagles, though, Carson Wentz, Tennessee is 21st in points allowed to the quarterback, which is in a good way. 21st fewest points allowed. Okay.
Yeah, it was a weird way to phrase it, but I got you.
Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey could be back, but as he continues to work his way back, there's going to be some options that I like more. So Wentz is still going to be depleted on weapons, knocking some rust off. I would probably sit him another week, just to let him get acclimated, let him get some of those weapons back. In the running game, Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement. Jay Ajayi is going to play. Tennessee's only giving up 11 points a game to running back. However, they have not faced anybody that's even remotely decent. Gore and Miller both had some moderate success here, so if Ajayi plays, I like him as a running back too. Gore, this is where he kind of flashed big in week 1, and then Miller was 14 for 86, so it's viable for sure. And then Clement, purely dependent on Ajayi for me, which if Ajayi goes, I like Clement less. Sproles isn't going to go, but I'm still not really bought into Corey Clement this week. Tennessee does not give up a ton of receptions or yardage to backs. 4.3 catches a game, 23 yards a game. So there's not big on the Corey Clement train this week.
I agree with you.
As for the wide receivers, if Jeffrey is back, and I'm assuming he's going to be at least in some capacity, don't start him yet. He needs to be fully up to speed. Get some of that rust off. With a quarterback that's also coming back from injury, I just don't love that offensively. Aguilar, I don't hate as a wide receiver 3 flex consideration if you need to do that. He's quicker and speed does kill in this case. Stills and Fuller both capable, put up 100 plus and a touchdown. And Hopkins also had a solid day against the Titans. So I don't hate Aguilar this week, especially if Jeffrey's out there. Even if he's just playing a decoy, it helps Aguilar. So
I mean, if Aguilar can just make sure he runs all slot routes from the slot, that
That's
helps a
the hope.
lot.
yes,
That's the hope.
I hate Aguilar from the outside. It's awful.
I do too. So I like Aguilar this week as a flex play, but I'm not saying absolutely run him out there. And then Ertz, you've got to start him. On to Tennessee, Marcus Mariota. My only note I had on that was nope.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I want to make sure he can actually hold on to the damn football.
And really, even though he's back, that's more out of necessity, I think. I don't know that he's still 100%, so I'm not doing that. Henry and Lewis, Philadelphia is dead last in points allowed to running backs, so they're not giving up anything to running backs at all. Neither of these guys are world beaters. Henry's just a straight-up bench for me. Lewis is a deep flex consideration, given he's been the more efficient back, and he's an adept receiving back. So if you're in any type of PPR league, you could throw that out there. But in Philadelphia, receiving, running, it doesn't matter. They're not really giving up anything to backs. So I would stay away from those guys. Corey Davis is wide receiver 2, almost based on volume alone. Evans and Jones both put up decent days against Philadelphia, but they both had 10-plus targets as well. I expect Corey Davis probably gets that. So he's a good play. Taylon Taylor, Jonnu Smith, they're both watches for me. This is not start them. This is look at these guys and pay attention because they may be potential waiver claims next week.
So the one note on Taylor, his snap percentage did jump up over 70% in week 3. He is definitely
And there's no Rashard Matthews.
He's definitely a deep league stash.
He is a deep league stash. I actually just had him thrown on top of a trade in a dynasty league. If Taylor can produce in any form, even if it's just targets, he could be in flex talk down the line. Jonnu Smith, you're just looking for him with Mariota, who likes to target the tight end. to also kind of pick up his target volume. So you're not starting either of them, but just kind of a preemptive guys we may be talking about on the waiver wire segment on Monday. Those are two guys I like.
All right. That all you got for that game?
Yeah, start the defense.
All right. For both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last game and the lowest over-under of the week before we finish up the noon games. Jets versus the Jaguars. Jaguars by 7.5 and only a 38.5 point over-under. On the Jets side, you are not starting Darnold, Pryor, or Anderson, and don't even consider them here. The Owl twins are both running back threes in this matchup. Both Barkley and White went for double digits against them. If I'm picking one, I'm going with the P Owl as opposed to the C Owl. Crowell has been super touchdown dependent through 3 weeks. Basically, either he's gotten a big play and scored a touchdown, or he hasn't done much of anything. So Powell's the one I prefer of the two. They're both back in running back three. So Anunua isn't a great start here, but two receivers have broken double digits in the first 3 weeks. So he's kind of a desperation high-end wide receiver 4. You can probably find a better option. Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, all the waiver wire guys we basically went over the last week. Sterling
Shepard, Kenny Golladay, Mike Williams,
John Brown, Michael Crabtree.
We can keep going.
Even Tyrell Williams if Allen doesn't
Allen doesn't go. We can keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
let's keep going. No, I'm kidding.
He's about the only other player you can consider starting from this matchup from the Jets side.
I agree.
On to the Jaguars. Jets defense has been better than expected through 3 weeks. So I'm benching Bortles, Westbrook, Moncrief, ASJ, and all non-Fournette running backs. Kenyon Drake and Hyde both went for 15 plus in the last 2 weeks. So Fournette, who should finally be healthy, should be a back-end RB1 in this one with the matchup. I do like him in this matchup. Get him in your lineup. Finally get rewarded for drafting him as long as you can finish the damn game. Receiver gets 10-plus targets they have produced against the Jets, and that was Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, and Jarvis Landry. So if we're chasing volume, that leads you to Keelan Cole. He's been the most consistent with targets. He had 8 and 9 in the last 2 games. There may actually be... I'm taking the over in this one. I think 38.5 is a little too low.
No.
So if anyone's going to break 10, my bet is on Keelan Cole. And this is a top 3 defensive play of the week for Jags. So get them in your lineup as if you weren't already. All right, that's enough on the noon games. Let's review a beer.
Burr.
Beer review.
Next on a second one over there. Look at you go.
I cracked the second one because I'm like, I'm going to be out before I'm done reviewing before we get to the review. Cats by Urban Chestnut. What do you guys think?
Like our beer on Wednesday, also of the Oktberfest variety. It's definitely more roasty. You can tell that it's more toasted, roasted malt, not necessarily as sweet as some of them that we had on last week as we continue our tour of every Oktberfest ever.
Yes. Welcome to Beer Fueled Oktberfest.
Very drinkable. It's a little bit less crisp, a little bit more on the kind of skunky, almost bitter side. It's good. It's drinkable. I'm almost out, and there's not another one, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out, but...
Talk real fast so we can get out of here and you'll get another beer.
Exactly. So it's solid, though.
I think it's a little sweeter than Wednesday's was. Who do we even have on Wednesday?
Ale Asylum.
Ale Asylums. I think this one's a little bit sweeter than theirs was.
Octillion.
More drinkable. Theirs, I think, was a 6%. This is a 5.4, so it's a little bit more sessionable as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to think almost every beer I've had from Urban Chestnut except for one. But for the most part, they've been very solid to us. So cheers to you guys. Great beer.
It did well. I mean, what it's supposed to do. I'm not a huge Oktoberfest fan, so I mean, that's what Dead Rainer is.
We're going to keep putting them on the show.
Exactly. Lime. All limes now. I'm kidding.
Nothing but lime.
No. It's so
lime
good,
and ginger.
It's so...
Piss off. I won't come back to get the beers.
I didn't get it in the mail.
We'll cover the labels with something else, and then you'll open it and be like, "The fuck is this shit?"
Oh, they got me again.
For those of you wondering why we're talking like this, more on that next Friday.
Is that when you're dropping the news? All right.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Let's get to the fun games. So there's going to be people who are winning by a lot in the noon games who are going to lose this week. And it's because almost all the games from 3 o'clock on are 50-point over-unders.
How is this 50 points? This should be like...
Saints versus the Giants.
Over.
This
3.5 point line, 50-point over-under. Hopper, you got this.
This should be 1,000,000 points.
Million?
Yeah. So...
Literally.
For the Saints, Breeze, Thomas, Kamara, start your studs. Ted Ginn, he's wide receiver 3 consideration for me this week. Kind of in that 3-4 range of potentially really good.
So Apple's not playing, so they're going to be down a cornerback for the Giants.
Down a cornerback. It should be a shootout. Go ahead and start him if you got him. Ben Watson, you can even run him out this week. Giants have not allowed a touchdown to a tight end yet this season. However, they're allowing about 50 yards a game to the position. He's fourth in targets on this team. So,
and as I talked about in my start of the week,
they
were
the
worst against tight ends in 2017.
And they were, and this is the first kind of notable one they're facing. So, go ahead and run Ben Watson out there. As for the Giants, kind of the same thing. Eli Manning is a high-end flex play or high-end stream this week. Saints are allowing 35.1 points a game to opposing quarterbacks.
And they play Tyrod Taylor. So.
Yep. And they're 27th in sacks this year, 32nd in touchdown percent allowed, and tied for 32nd in touchdowns allowed. So the pass rush isn't great, which is a good news for the Giants because their offensive line also is not great. And the Saints are giving up a ton of touchdowns. 10.1% is their allowed touchdown rate.
Holy shit!
Yeah, that wasn't choreographed, by the way.
This might be worse than what we saw in 2014 from them.
I'm so excited for this game.
I'm so glad.
10.1%. They're tied for first, giving up 10 touchdowns so far this season.
Oh, man.
My God.
I'm so sad Mahomes doesn't play him this year.
Yeah. For Beckham and Saquon, start your studs. Shepard, he feasts without Evan Ingram and Odell Beckham playing. Dan had that note on Wednesday's episode. Saints are worst in fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So I like Sterling Shepard a ton this week. And Rhett Ellison, he did see 3 targets last week.
Scored a touchdown.
He scored a touchdown. The Saints aren't necessarily bad against opposing tight ends, though, so don't get too cute. Probably not starting Rhett Ellison.
I consider
probably should not, but you should be picked up.
I also considered it, and then I picked up Ben Watson instead.
The much better choice.
All right, that's all I got on that game.
No defenses.
Yeah, no defenses. Don't start defenses and start your kickers. Eldrick Rosa, streamable kicker.
Unfortunately, it's in New York and not New Orleans.
I know.
Browns versus the Raiders. Raiders favored by 3 for some reason. 45-point over-under on this one. For the Browns, it is a decent matchup for Baker's first start. Raiders have allowed 15-plus to all 3 opponents this year, so his floor should be pretty safe. They've allowed at least 1 touchdown to all opponents as well. But, as I noted here, a lot of people are running out to start him, but you probably have better options this week in a one-quarterback league. Andy Dalton, Eli Manning, these are guys you'd much rather start than Baker Mayfield right now.
They're probably rostered. Well, maybe not Manning.
Maybe not. You can probably go out and stream them.
Maybe not Dalton either.
It'd be weird.
Just traded for Dalton on the cheap in a dynasty league.
Smart man.
Raiders have actually done pretty well against opposing running backs, though. They're allowing just 17.5 fantasy points per game. That's 10th best in the league. Hyde is still a fine start here, though. He's got a high running back, too, though, with the volume. But Duke and Chubb are not getting enough work for ancillary work in this one. Don't start either one. I just want to see you try to make this shit.
Nailed it.
It's like watching who used to dead arm fucking deep throws. That was closer.
Christian Ponder.
It's like watching Mason Rudolph highlights. Hey,
That didn't even make it, though.
and an overthrow.
All right. On to the receivers. Raiders have allowed 6 double-digit fantasy performances to opposing receivers and at least 1 a game through 3 weeks. So Landry is an obvious wide receiver 2 here. And even Callaway saw a monster 11 targets last week is even worth a look as a wide receiver 4, low-end wide receiver 3.
By the way, for those that don't just know what was going on, that's why you watch on YouTube.
Watch on YouTube to see things go flying across the screen.
Get a clue. Watch on YouTube. Njoku is a borderline bench this week, though. You might have to play him just due to complete attrition at the position. You may have no other options. But Raiders have only allowed 10 catches for 105 yards with no touchdowns to tight end this year. So this is the anti-juicy matchup for Njoku. He could blow up this week with Baker, but I'm not betting on it. And then Browns is a top 5 defense. I love them this matchup, even on the road. I am predicting the Browns to win this game easily. On the Raiders side, David Carr is a hell no. You guys suck at this.
That was the left hand.
Nailed it.
Left hand.
All right. Derek Carr's a hell no. Browns are currently the number 2 overall defense against quarterbacks, and they faced Big Ben and Breeze so far this season.
That's impressive.
Lynch On the other flip side is an excellent start is a mid to high end running back too. Browns have given up 10 plus to opposing running backs in all 3 games, including 4 rushing touchdowns. If they could even get enough ball, you might even consider Martin and Rashard here, but I just don't trust either one of them enough to get more than 5 touches. The opposing wide receiver 1 has an average stat line of 880 and 1 on 12 targets against the Browns. So Cooper isn't in the Brown-Thomas tier, but he should still be the primary weapon against the Browns this week. I like him as a wide receiver 3 with some serious upside this week.
It's going to be Seth Roberts.
On the flip side, wide receiver 2s have been much worse, going 470-0 through 3 games, and that's including a 119-yard game out of Juju. Though I'm not sure he really counts as a wide receiver 2 at this point.
I don't think he does.
1A, 1B.
Browns have been excellent against tight ends the last 2 weeks, giving up 7 catches for 37 yards against the Saints and the Jets. Week 1 was their worst performance. They gave it 3-60 to Jesse James in kind of a weird game. You probably can't sit Cook.
It feels weird to say that, doesn't it?
It does. It
feels wrong.
Real dirty.
Tight end injuries are bad.
Everything.
They were bad before the injuries, and now it's just awful.
Everything with tight end is ugly.
At this point, I just want to play in a tight end optional league.
I'm in one.
That sounds great.
It is.
At this point, you probably can't sit him, but this game is kind of a red flag. Like, you may want to try to find another option.
All right.
So good luck.
I'm not sure why the voice was needed, but
Why did he change voices?
Dan,
why am I talking like this?
you get the ugliest game of the 3 o'clock games. Seahawks at the Cardinals. Seahawks favored by 3, 38.5 point over under.
How are they only favored by 3?
I have no idea.
It's on the road. It's on the road.
Also betting the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of games on this week I might bet.
So for the
See
Seahawks,
what the money line is.
yeah, right. Your starts: Wilson, Carson, and the defense. Wilson has thrown for multiple touchdowns in each of his games this season, combined with his rushing floor. It's a must start. As for Carson, he's my start of the week. Finally, Seattle has decided to pick Carson as their main, carry leader.
We think.
So incoming 20 carries for pro size.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Don't put that evil on
It's
me.
Mike Davis.
Yeah, obviously. They're going to bring back J.D. McKissick from
IR.
and somehow get it.
What's Christine Michael doing?
Nothing. He's a free agent.
Oh, shit. And then as for the defense, it's Josh Rosen's first career start.
You missed Doug Baldwin.
I used to assume he wasn't playing.
So Doug Baldwin's
Actually, he's at flex. I put him in the flex just because I wasn't sure of his health,
He's a pretty good start this week.
as we've noted to earlier.
Ow.
So yeah, if Baldwin plays, he's a great play.
These things work like earmuffs. I'm trying to let some body heat out.
And then for flex plays, Tyler Lockett. Fun fact: the Cardinals are the only team in the league to not allow a touchdown to receivers this year.
So they're the anti-Kansas City Chiefs.
I was like, really? So yeah, I mean, there's volume for him if Baldwin doesn't play, or if they decide to limit a Baldwin snaps, like you saw with Cook. As for the bench plays, Marshall and all tight ends, because Marshall hasn't done shit with his chances, and Baldwin is looking to return, and you really don't know who's going to be the tight end guy this week, as it seems to be a mesh between Disley and Vanette. As for
at least Ed Dixon's not a thing.
Thankfully.
Thank God. As for the Cardinals, David Johnson's your only start. He's had 2 touchdowns in his 3 games, so he hasn't been super killer to you this year. And this isn't a terrible matchup for him, and maybe the change in QB will spark something in this offense. As for your flex and stream plays, Larry Fitz is a flex play if you think that this change will help. If Rosen's under duress, maybe he decides to go to his Hall of Fame receiver, which is why I also don't mind Christian Kirk this week. After Rosen came in, you got to see that he started to pamper Kirk a bit with targets. He had 9 targets last week, went 7 for 90. You got to see this in preseason when they were out there as well together. Kurt is not a terrible deflex start this week. And then the defense, because Wilson is not immune to throwing picks or taking sacks. And then you're going to bench Rosen because don't get cute.
Don't be crazy.
Yeah, don't get cute.
And that's it.
All right. 49ers at the Chargers. Chargers favored by 10.5, 46.5 point over under. So who for the Chargers are we not starting, and who for the 49ers are we actually starting?
So, okay. Well, you asked that different than I had this written. So who for the 49ers are we actually starting? Matt Breida, if he plays, Chargers are allowing the 8th most points to running backs. Most of that was Gurley, but he's going to see some volume. He's worth an RB2 start. He is putting up some pretty absurd efficiency stats. Marquise Goodwin is worth a flex consideration. He was a wide receiver 33 with Bethard last season. It is not the worst matchup you could possibly have. It's kind of one of those vacuum matchups. So if you have him and you're in a 3 wide receiver league or desperate for a flex, he's okay. That and George Kittle, I don't know that you can really sit him with the condition of tight ends. The Chargers are only allowing 2.9 points to tight ends this season, which includes Travis Kelce.
I forgot about that. Done to week 1.
Yep. So it's not a fantastic matchup, but I don't know that there's a situation where you can sit him. And that's the only people you're starting for the 49ers. CJ Beathard, I just wanted to say watch him because we could be talking about him as a streamer in some weeks to come. He did average 19.5 points a game last season. Chargers defense has been pretty meh, but you want to wait to see it. So watch him.
He's also more of it was a lot of running touchdowns, wasn't it?
Yeah, he does have some running upside, and he had a couple decent games throwing the football too. It wasn't great, but when we get into bipocalypses, we could be talking about him.
So
he loves a check down.
Check back in week 8.
Loves the check down.
That's it. As far as the Chargers, who are you not starting? The only one I don't like, and this is completely dependent on Keenan Allen. If Keenan Allen plays, I would kind of steer clear of Tyrell Williams. And the reason for that is I don't expect this to be a game where they have to throw a ton or where there's going to be a ton of volume. Mike Williams at least has a touchdown upside in that scenario to where he can, give you one even if he doesn't give you 80 yards. If Keenan Allen doesn't play, though, that goes completely out the window, and you'd absolutely start Tyrell Williams.
And then the tight ends, probably.
Yeah, and the tight ends. Everybody else you're starting. Eckler, I like his game script. All 20 of his attempts this year have been with at least a 1-touchdown lead, and 31 of his attempts last year came with a touchdown or more lead. Only 16 were when they were playing from behind or with less than a touchdown lead. So, with the way I expect this game to go, with the way that line is set, not a bad week to run out Austin Eckler.
So the narrative is you start Eckler when you think they're going to winning big.
Yep. When you think they're winning by more than a touchdown, start Eckler. You start your studs for Gordon, Allen, Tate, and Thielen, both partial slot guys, at least had 100+ yards against this team, so that works out really well for Keenan Allen if he does play. And for Rivers, the 49ers are giving up multiple touchdowns in every game, 300+ yards in 3 of 4 of them. Game script is a little bit troublesome, but he's a back-end QB1 regardless. It's just because I don't expect it to be a shootout, and he's tossed for multiple touchdowns in every game this season with only 1 pick.
All right. Let's get to an interesting one here. I think this is the first Ravens game we've covered since doing this for a season and a quarter now, where I've seen a Ravens game with a 50+ point over-under. Ravens at the Steelers. Steelers by 3. 50.5 point is the over-under spread on this one.
Oh, Joe Flacco.
Oofta.
On the Ravens side, Steelers are second worst in the league against opposing quarterbacks, allowing a minimum of 24.6 fantasy points per game against opposing QBs, and 2 of them were Tyrod Taylor and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Joe Flacco is actually in consideration for stream status this week. You may be able to find something you trust a little bit more than that, but if you're desperate,
it hasn't really killed you.
Roll out Joe Flacco. Like if you're in a dynasty league and you have shitty quarterbacks, you just lost Jimmy Garoppolo, I would start Joe Flacco this week, and I wouldn't even concern myself that much with it. On the flip side, running defense for the Steelers has actually been pretty good this year. They're giving up 3.56 yards an attempt. Touchdowns saved, Hyde and Hunt. I would temper expectations for Collins and Allen. Collins as more of a low 2 and Allen as a mid 3. Don't love either one, but you probably are starting them just due to lack of.
And they don't allow a lot of receiving yards or receptions to backs either.
Teams they're not bothering throwing to them. They're just chucking it deep, which is
to.
why I love John Brown.
Just stay healthy, please.
They've allowed 6 different receivers to score a touchdown on them. 4 have broke 90 yards. Smokey John Brown is a wide receiver 2 at minimum this week. He is, if he's healthy and good to go. And Crabtree, even if John Brown is healthy, sneaks in as a wide receiver 3. If John Brown is not healthy, I like Crabtree as a wide receiver 2 this week because some wide receiver is going to go off. Snead's on the bench unless Brown is not healthy, in which case I like him as a streaming candidate. The problem is this is the Sunday night game, so you probably have to make this decision too early in the day.
Especially on the John Brown thing of if he's going to play or not. Who's going Monday night?
Chiefs Broncos.
Chiefs Broncos.
So if you got a Chief or a Bronco that you can flip in, or another Raven or a Steeler, then
which
okay.
unfortunately
Cortland Sutton's on the I mean, if you want to get cute,
If you need to get desperate, yeah, maybe Cortland Sutton's
Yeah,
out
unfortunately, all the obvious starts in those games are 100% owned, and you'd be starting them anyway.
there. Right?
If you knew who the true tight end monster was going to be in this game, like who was going to get the targets from the tight end position, this would be a great matchup because currently the Steelers have given up 47.5 points to tight ends in the last 2 weeks alone.
oh,
And 3 tight ends have broken double digits in the last 2 weeks against them. That was Kelsey, Howard, and Brait.
one of these tight ends will.
So there's going to be a tight end that goes off. Unfortunately, 4 might be playing because you've got Boyle, Andrews, Williams, and Hurst might go too. So bench them all because you have no idea.
At least Williams plays a lot of his snaps during the half or in the fullback's position if they use them.
Yep. And then for Ravens defense, avoiding them at all costs. And Tucker, don't even think about it. You start him because it's 50-point over-under.
In Tuck we trust.
All right. From the Steelers side of things, so one of 2 things is true when it comes to quarterbacks playing the Ravens. Either Andy Dalton is elite, who put up 26.6 points against him, or Case Keenum, Nathan Peterman, and Josh Allen are terrible, who combined for 11.3 points. I'm betting on the second being closer to reality. So Big Ben at home, decent start here. He's been 25-plus points in back-to-back games. I like him as a back and quarterback 1 at home. This Ravens defense doesn't seem to be nearly as good as it was last year.
And I don't think C.J. Mosley's playing.
They said Mosley probably is going, which should help, but I don't think it fixes all ills, especially with 2 elite wide receivers going
And they don't have Jimmy Smith back
for the Steelers. Ravens defense, though, on the flip side, has been excellent against opposing running backs. They're at 3.94 yards a touch. I'm including receptions in that. That is disgusting. So Connor's either going to need 1 or 2 things to have a decent fantasy day here. He's going to need 20-plus touches, which could very well happen, or he's going to need a touchdown. Mixon got you 9.2 on 22 touches, and Freeman got in the end zone and he hit 12.3. That's basically your only 2 options. So he either has to score or get 20 touches. Maybe he gets both, but Connor's more of a running back 2 this week than a running back 1.
I agree.
Worst line in opposing good wide receivers put up against the Ravens, so basically no one on the Bills, is 5 for 63, and that was Demaryius Thomas. Sanders, Green, and Boyd all broke 15 fantasy points and scored a touchdown. Stokes Brown is a must-start for obviously and Juju as wide receiver 1s. They're both probably going to put up monster points this game. Ravens allowed just 14 catches for 136 yards and no touchdowns opposing tight ends, and 6 is the best fantasy day for any opposing tight end so far against the Ravens. With James and McDonald both healthy, I'm avoiding both. If I'm starting one, it's the Hamburglar. He's our consensus tight end 15.
McDonald? Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yep. That's all I got for this game. Let's move on to Chiefs at the Broncos with the highest over-under of the week to finish it up. So there's going to be lots of people losing on Monday night. 4.5-point over-under, 55, or 4.5 for the Chiefs, 55.5-point over-under. Dan, close us out.
That is I take the under there. Which is weird to say. Anyway, start with the Chiefs. You're going to start all your Chiefs minus their defense. We'll go a little more in depth here. How much more? Mahomes, this might be the toughest matchup he's played for this, or he's seen this season. He's still a must start. As for Kareem Hunt, I am concerned with his lack of involvement in the passing game and his lack of production overall. But this offense, it's always in the red zone. It's at least 3 or 4 times it seems like each game. So he is always has a good chance to score a touchdown, and they tend to use him more when they get down to the goal line, which is good to see. So he's more of an RB2 with RB1 upside. As for the receivers, Denver's secondary isn't what it used to be, but this offense can put up points like crazy. While Hill has fallen back down to earth after his blow-up week in week 1, it's crazy to think that you can even set him because he has some of the highest upside of any receiver in this league. And as for Watkins, he's out-targeted and out-produced Hill in the past 2 weeks. But he still doesn't have the same upside as Hill. He's still a good wide receiver, too, in this matchup. And Kelsey is a must-start. And then you're going to start Bucker because, kicker on a good offense. It's going to score a lot of points.
In Denver.
As for Denver, your starts are the receiving combos of Sanders and Thomas. It's a great matchup for them. All they have to do is make sure that they can get enough volume to get them the ball, which I expect them to do in this game. Sanders has been the most productive with that volume, but Thomas has been getting that as well. He's out-targeted Sanders, I think, by 3. They're both in the high 20s. As for your flex and streaming options this week, Keenum is a stream option this week. Hasn't been a great start for him this year, but the Chiefs have given up a lot of points to quarterbacks, and you couldn't do much worse or much better. As for the running backs, this is a better game script for Lindsey. Problem is that just like what we saw with the Niners last week, the running backs just don't get targeted that much in this passing game. Lindsey has 6 targets on the season, only 3 catches. He is a big play guy, so he at least you have that going for you if you decide to play him. As for Royce Freeman, he's kind of in the same boat as Lindsey when it comes to pass catching volume. He just doesn't get any. But we saw that Morris had success against the Chiefs last week, so maybe Royce can find the end zone as well. And then I wouldn't play their defense. It's a horrid matchup, and they've scored under 10 points these past 2 weeks. That's including against the Ravens in Oakland.
All right. That all you got?
That's it.
All right. That wraps up week 4. Please jump on Sunday morning, 10:30 in the morning, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football on YouTube. That is Central Time. Ask us all your start-sit questions. We'll be with all the breaking news, all the injuries we covered earlier in the episode. We'll let you know who's playing and who's not for what we have for our early morning rumors. In addition, you can follow us individually on Twitter. We got Dan Thury.
At Thury BFF.
Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 P's.
And I am Nick Sparts. The show is Beer Fueled FFs. Get your start-sit questions to us on Twitter there. Remember to check out Instagram if you want to see the can art. Reviews are on Untapped. And that's a long enough episode for you guys. So we'll catch you guys next time on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Later.
Bye.
See ya.
See ya.
Bus.